Welcome to another episode of the Conversations with Chris podcast. We are doing another interview on this podcast, and it's a very special guest in whom I'm very excited to bring to you guys, and Chad Bykerk. Chad and I met down in Waco, Texas at the IronMan full distance triathlon, IronMan Waco, and he beat us all. He left us all in his dust. He's the age group champion of that race for the 25 to 29-year-olds, and I'm very excited to have him. So Chad, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
First off, thank you, Chris, for having me on. It's a pleasure. Really had an awesome time racing alongside of you in Waco. Being in such a competitive age group, 25 to 29, it's just great to see you guys all, out there getting it. I think we really pushed each other to our limits that day. So just had a lot of fun. Great to be, back talking with you today. Just to give a little bit about myself. I started my triathlon journey in 2019 and just really fell in love with it. Did my first sprint distance, and then 2 weeks later, I ended up actually signing up for my first full distance Ironman. Thought to myself, why not? If I'm going to do this, let's just go big or go home. Funny thing is that full distance I actually didn't do until 2 weeks ago, since we had just postponement after postponement with COVID. So 18 months later, I finally got to race that full distance Ironman. I would say in hindsight, it's probably the best thing, because I don't think I would have been well prepared in 2020. I think I would have crossed that finish line, but to cross it, as a, first in my age group, there's no way in hell I would have gotten there. So, I think, with all of those cancellations and postponements, in hindsight, I got a few middle distance under my belt, learned a lot in just endurance sports through that 2 years, and was really able to, I think, use that experience to my advantage going into my first full distance race.
That's awesome, man. I did not know that. I think I read that might have been your first full distance, but I didn't know it got postponed. That's cool. What was the one that you originally signed up for?
It was Ironman Texas in April of 2020. Yeah. So I signed up for that, I think, in October of 2019 or so. And I wouldn't say Waco was my first full distance. I was actually really prepared to do it April of this year, and thought to myself, Texas, pandemic, if anywhere is going to have a race, it's going to be Texas. So I didn't defer to another race. I had options to maybe defer to Tulsa or California at the time, but I said, you know what, if I have confidence in any place having a race, it's probably Texas. So unfortunately, I got the bad news, I want to say about 3 weeks before Texas was supposed to happen, that it was postponed yet again. And at that time, I had done already 3 Ironman training blocks, for it to be postponed again. So it was really gut wrenching for me. I think, as the hardest part of an Ironman is really just getting to that start line. Like the training in the block is very, very high volume, a lot of long days, trying to manage your time efficiently, and, not having too much of a life, especially during those peak weeks. So I actually talked with some few friends, and we put on, my own Ironman back home for a charity. And so I did my own, Ironman actually in April on the day of Texas. So I wouldn't say it was my first one in Waco. It was first official one. The one that I did back home was, more just in the, enjoying it, not doing it technically at race pace, but I would say I still learned a lot of, on that day, especially regarding, nutrition strategy and then pacing. I went into that run feeling really good, came out way too hot. And then, on the second half of the marathon, my legs felt like cement. So I think really going into Waco, I knew not to underestimate the distance, to really take, those first, I would say, 18 to 20 miles pretty conservatively. And then, if you have it on the last 10K, that's where I suggest, athletes let it rip. But I think a lot of people take that first half of the marathon out a little too hot, get that heart rate a little bit too into zone 3, which you kind of want to stay out of until the back half of the marathon, and make sure that you're really just, sticking to your pacing strategy and fueling, especially true in Waco. I think I was taking down 2 to 3 cups every aid station, walking pretty much every aid station because it was really hot. So fueling became a big priority. And I would say those 2 lessons learned that I learned in April, having done my own, really stuck with me in Waco and helped me, be successful at that race.
Definitely. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack right there, Chad, and I appreciate all that you share.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to talk about the charity fundraiser. What charity were you doing it for? Did you have anybody running with you, or was it kind of all like you versus yourself the whole way?
Yeah, so I had some friends actually join me. One friend on the bike course, joined me for about 60 miles, and then I had actually a lot of friends on the run join me. Wow. I joke because not really anyone can keep up with me on the swim. Wow. I'm kind of a fish out of water, so I did the swim solo. Had a few people supporting me with SAG on the bike, which was nice, and then on the run, I had a few friends either running beside me, and then another friend with a bike actually carrying my nutrition, which made it a lot easier because I didn't have to wear like a Camelback and do all of that self-supported. So that made it really, really, awesome, just because I had a lot of friends and family supporting me along the way. The charity that we fundraise for is called Keen LA. It's called Kids Enjoy Exercise Now. Okay. Basically, it's a charity for kids with special needs, basically, where we're trying to help those kids get active. It's especially true with kids with special needs, where obesity is actually even more of a problem. And we find, when we're able to get these kids, into the community exercising, it really just is life-changing for them. Not only for their health, but I think their well-being, right? From a social perspective, gaining more confidence in their abilities. So that's a charity that's local to us in Los Angeles that I was very passionate about. We ended up raising $2,000 for that charity through my IronMan fundraiser. And so that was definitely a big cherry on top. And honestly, just doing my first full distance in the place I grew up was pretty special. I think we made a pretty awesome course. Started over at the iconic Tower 26, if you know Tower 26, big swim program, but there's actually a Tower 26 in Santa Monica. So I did the swim there, biked, along Malibu, nice scenic ocean course. And then the run started in Santa Monica, ending down in Redondo Beach, which I kind of actually have a picture of right here.
Oh, damn.
So you could see it was a pretty cool course. Yeah. I would love if IronMan put that one on the circuit there, but rather than Sacramento, but it would probably be hard to close roads on PCH for a day.
Oh, I'm sure. Wow, that's incredible, man. I'm sure they were wishing they did that this year, because Ironman California got canceled the day after we ran, which is.
I know. It's a bit of a bummer. I had a lot of friends racing that, but honestly, I'm really happy I didn't end up deferring to that one. Right, 4 postponements, I maybe just would have quit this one altogether.
Oh my God. Imagine. Things happen for a reason, my man. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Now, you touched upon your swim background a little bit, and that's something that blew me away in our race, is that you, I believe, finished first in the swim, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I think, I got second out of the water. I don't know, probably by one second. Really my strategy was to draft that guy who was, making a really good pace. And I was just letting him do the work. As you know, a lot of Ironmans making those strategic tactical decisions. And I knew just sticking on his feet, I was actually accelerating my pace, but saving energy. Right. So I really just tried to stay on his feet, on the second half when he caught me, and a really good strategy rather than, you know, trying to just push him to get maybe 2 to 3 seconds on someone that, you know, that's not going to matter in a full distance race. So, yeah, to touch on my swimming background, I've been, you know, swimming since I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So in the water at an early age. I think growing up, you know, right next to the ocean, my parents made it a priority for us to all learn how to swim and be, you know, comfortable in the open water. That way they didn't have to worry about us when we were, you know, out going surfing at a young age, and, you know, knew that we had good capability in the water. So I started, you know, swim lessons at a young age, was very comfortable with the water. My 2 older brothers actually played water polo, and just being the youngest of 3 boys, I kind of followed in their footsteps, always wanting to do what my 2 brothers were doing. So I started water polo at the age of 11 and then played till the age of 20. And that was my life for 9 to 10 years, like 2-a-days, 5 a.m. swim practice, you name it. I would never say I was really a swimmer per se. I did swim team for a few years and, you know, did pretty well in short distance racing. I was really a 50 and 100-meter sprinter guy. So I have a lot of takeout speed. I think the struggle for me is now putting that into the endurance world. But slowly starting to apply that. So yeah, I played water polo for 10 years, very competitively. I think that's just transitioned, you know, well to open water. Things like battling for position, you know, having head up, having, you know, a higher elbow stroke. Those sort of things I think have, you know, helped me really translate my pool swimming into open water. And then also just growing up next to the ocean, being very comfortable in open water, growing up surfing. So I would say, you know, that's where I kind of just got, you know, found my passion for aquatics, really love swimming. And then, you know, early years in college, I was actually burnt out, you know, decided to hang up the towel in water polo after, you know, pretty severe shoulder injury, tearing my right rotator cuff, playing through shoulder injuries for about 3 years and just having enough of it. So I took a little bit of a hiatus, you know, in college, just continue to stay active, you know, but play a lot of intramural sports, but nothing competitively really. And then, you know, after college is just going to the gym every day with no goal, and just itching to do something. So I'd say that spark really clicked for me, in 2019. I had actually a really good friend and water polo teammate who took his own life and was really, really hard on me. And I had never ran before in my life, but I just found solitude in running. Like it helped me escape my own head, and just, you know, vent. And I had a lot of anger and I think blame or guilt that I was carrying in myself, and running just kind of helped me set me free and became a form of meditation. And so I quickly got addicted to running, found myself jumping back into the pool and just getting more into, you know, cardio, feeling a lot better. And it's kind of funny, you know, I just randomly one day at the office was talking with one of my coworkers, and she's like, well, you're running and swimming, you know, would you ever be interested in triathlon? I was like, yeah, it sounds actually pretty cool. And, you know, didn't think anything of it. You know, I think 1 or 2 weeks passed by, and she gives me a card for my birthday. I open it up, and she registered me for a local sprint triathlon.
Oh
so I had like 8 weeks to get ready. I didn't even have a road bike. So she actually gave me her husband's old hand-me-down road bike. I still have it. You know, so that's what I did my first sprint on. And, you know, in 8 weeks time, you know, I put in a lot of effort into getting ready for that, and ended up finishing second in my age group, at that sprint. And, you know, I think it was just like, I had missed competing, you know, I missed really like pushing myself against other athletes, and just that adrenaline rush of like the gun going off and just, you know, hammering. So that for me, it just, you know, I just fell in love with triathlon that day. Talked to a coach afterwards, and he was like, I really hope you stick with this because you have a lot of potential. So I kind of took those words to heart, you know, and like I said, I signed up for that Ironman, and I think the rest is history. I just slowly through that training process, I think gravitated towards endurance. It's just something about, you know, that low aerobic training that I really like. Especially just from a, like I said, just meditative standpoint, just going out and training and being outdoors for maybe 5-6 hours some days, you know, just getting to explore, whether it's on the trails or on the bike. I just simply love it. I mean, I love the process. I love training. I mean, racing is great, but to be honest, like, you know, even after a week or two of my Ironman, like I was already, you know, itching to just get back out to training. So training for me is something that I love, and just goes hand in hand with racing. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Wow. And again, a lot to unpack there, but I do want to touch upon this meditation aspect and honestly your story. And I want to honor you for opening up about that. I had no idea. But I do find that a lot of endurance athletes, a lot of triathletes have a backstory like that, where they went through a difficult time or they had something happen to them and they turned to triathlon or running or biking as sort of an outlet. And I'd love to hear your take on why you think that is. You kind of shared a little bit there, and I mean, if you think I'm crazy, but I do think this is a trend in the triathlon and endurance field.
Yeah, I think one, just the lack of stimulus when you're out there. A lot of times, if I'm running, cycling, or swimming, I don't wear headphones, and I do that completely on purpose. I find that I really just try to focus on my breath in the present moment and just being in the now. And I think when I'm out there, you know, training, whether it's even for just an hour and maybe as much as 7 or 8 hours on the big block days, you know, and it's just me and my own thoughts. And, you know, especially a lot of the time I'm out there training solo. So there's just a lot to, I think, filter through, whether it's, you know, a project at work or, you know, an issue at home with the family or something that you're internalizing. There's just a lot to think about while you're out there and to work through. And I think that really provides a lot of mental clarity. I've always been someone that's a little bit fidgety, and it's hard for me to just sit down and meditate. I've always found exercise as my form of active meditation and really able to get into almost a zone, as you probably experienced with, you know, endurance sports, where all of a sudden you look down at your watch and you're like, oh my God, I just ran for 2 hours and it felt like 30 minutes. And it just, time just goes by, you know, I guess hours go by in minutes, and it's kind of crazy when you lock into that zone, but that's just kind of the magic of endurance. And I think where we can put our bodies, if we have that mental connection, of just going to another place. And for me, that's I think where endurance sports, you know, has launched me, is just being able to, you know, disconnect from reality for maybe 2 hours and really just vent or, you know, help me go through whatever I'm going through that day. So I think that's honestly one of the best parts about endurance, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Amen. I would agree wholeheartedly. And yeah, that's as good of an answer as you can get. So thank you, Chad.
Of course.
Another thing that blows me away about you is your ability to do all these things. You know, your time management, I guess, is admirable and honestly awe-inspiring, because not only do you train for these triathlons and train at a level to put you in a position to win an age group or make it to the world championships, but you also coach others, and then you have a full-time job on top of that. So I'm curious as to how you're able to manage it all so well. We'll dig into a little bit about your perspective on coaching, but do you have any time management strategies that help you, or is it kind of just more of a communication factor and just holding yourself accountable?
Yeah, I would say it's both, but definitely I'm really into just being planned or into planning and organizing. So just having a planner, making sure that, you know, I'm kind of staying with my day-to-day tasks that I need to get done. I'm very much a morning person. So I
Mhm.
try to get my most critical stuff done in the morning. So if I have a key workout that day, I really try to just knock that out before work. And it actually helps me feel, I think, more energized at work. Another thing that I think has been a big help is actually the pandemic. Since then, I went 100% remote. So working from home, not having to spend 2 hours a day commuting in LA has been honestly a godsend. Because I can tell you, when I was doing Ironman training and working full time, I mean, some days I'd be waking up at 4:35 a.m. to go train and be getting home at 9 p.m. to cook dinner and go straight to bed. And I was getting burnout. So I think the pandemic really helped put some things into reality of I was a little bit overworked and maybe overtrained, and to get some more importance on getting, trying to get 8 hours a night of sleep. It's not something to be ashamed of, to know that, hey, sleep is important, despite contrary belief. But I think today it's just, putting good principles in my day to day, staying organized, staying on top of things. I would say I definitely have, most of my days are pretty packed full, but also using my days off to get ahead, I think, is a big thing, right? So, I'm kind of a weekend warrior. I don't, really, my weekends are packed as well. So I might start Sunday, work maybe 2 to 3 hours on my full-time gig just to get a little bit ahead, so come Monday morning, I don't have a ton of emails to get to. I can kind of just start my critical tasks, right away. So I think doing a lot of that blocking and tackling when you have time is a good thing. And just, setting up your priorities will help you, set yourself up for success. Additionally, coaching, again, a lot of it right now has been remote, but starting to do a lot more of that, with the athletes in person, which is, I think, way more gratifying. But a lot of that I do on the weekends when I have more flexibility. So that helps as well.
Gotcha. That's cool. And yeah, that's something that I'm interested in. So I'd love to hear how you got involved in it, how long you've been doing it, and what that has been like for you. Because I do now see that you're going to these events with your athletes. So
Yeah,
how has that progressed along the way?
definitely. So kind of, and back, I would say in 2019, 2020, I had a really good mentor, Jasmine, who is a triathlon coach that I would train with side by side, still train with her. And she kind of just, brought me under her wing as a beginner, taught me a lot about just triathlon in general. And then I actually helped her start a local triathlon club here called South Bay Squad in the South Bay of Los Angeles. And started with that team just as a swimming coach. I have a, credible swim background, and I felt like I could instantly add value as a swim coach. So I started as a swim coach, later got brought on actually with the Ocean, who's an open water swim program that I swim with. Actually the world's biggest open water swim program. So if you have any listeners who are open water swimmers anywhere around the world, I encourage them to check out One with the Ocean. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's great because, we're all about ocean conservation, cleaning up the community, and just, swimming as a group. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd really check it out. Not to go off on a tangent there, but started to become a open water coach with them, and then get interested in triathlon coaching just by default of coaching in general. So started to just learn and grow as a coach. Took the IronMan University course, and I think as an athlete, Mauna kind of saw, and sorry, I didn't mention, Mauna is the triathlon team that I'm currently on, that I coach for. I think they noticed as an athlete, oh wow, Chad is very knowledgeable regarding open water, and he's starting to take a lot of interest in just triathlon and endurance sports. So they actually just took a risk on me and asked if I wanted to be a coach there. So I started coaching with Mauna, I would say earlier this year, around February, March timeframe.
Okay.
I pulled in some athletes for them, started to coach some triathletes, and that's been honestly just amazing. Helping some of my athletes this year across their first finish line. One of my athletes, shout out Marina, just actually qualified for world championships next year for 70.3. So that was my first athlete to qualify, in her second 70.3, I might add. She placed second overall in her age group. So last week at Oceanside. So for me, like, those are the things as a coach that I think just trump any accolades as an athlete. Just being able to see their success, and just have a little bit of part of it. I know that they really do all the work, but being able to mentor and guide those athletes and see their progress has been just life-changing for me. And to be honest, I would say coaching is really my passion. Athletics help fulfill that competitive drive that I have that coaching really couldn't do. But coaching's always been my passion. I kind of discovered that back in college. I coached abroad in Barcelona for water polo. And it was there that I really discovered, like, wow, I really do love this. But it wasn't until it came full circle until, 2019, 2020, until I actually started, coaching again, which was probably 5 years later.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man. That's something that I see a lot of people kind of transition into in the triathlon world, but I feel like you jumped right in and said, let's do it right here, right now, which is pretty cool. And
definitely. And I think I had a lot of good mentors along the way. Because in the beginning, I don't know that I had a ton of confidence in myself. I said, well, I don't have a ton of experience in the sport of triathlon, while I have a lot of experience in open water swimming. And as a swimmer, I didn't have too much confidence in my ability to just be an endurance and multi-sport coach. And I think Mauna told me, don't sell yourself short. You know a lot more than you give yourself credit. And just like I said, being a student, Mauna's full of a lot of really good coaches, and just being able to pull on them, ask them questions, whether that be, nutrition related, endurance related, they're always cool for me to drop them a line. And, I think that's been a really great part of my learning process. And then additionally, just athletes, being able to take a risk and hire me and trust me that I can get them to where they want to be, has been awesome as well. So I would say I still have a ton to learn as a coach, but it's, again, something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I feel like, when you're following your passion, that expertise just comes, because it's something that, I don't even consider work. It's just, I enjoy picking up articles and reading and learning about it every day. So it's really a great process.
That's good. And that actually touches upon something that I'm curious about, is where you get your information from, and somebody who's looking to get involved or learn a little bit more about the sport. What would you recommend in terms of books, articles, information? Here we go.
So you have I would say this is probably like the number one book to start with is the Triathlon Bible. It's like 400 pages by Joel Friel. So that's going to give you a lot of really good just information from top level, as far as, endurance based training, whether that's, the 80-20 rule, right? To, form, technique, nutrition, strength training, all of that is going to hit on a very, pretty much high level. Won't get into the, nuts and bolts of everything, but I think it's really good just gain a basic understanding of multi-sport as a whole. So that's a really good book. The other one that I would pick up it's by Matt Dixon with Purple Patch Fitness. I'm blanking on the name right now though. But that's one that I'm currently reading, and it's all about, also, I think what I really like about that book is bringing balance into triathlon. I think a lot of amateurs and age groupers make the mistake of training all the time. And I think it's really easy in this sport to become overtrained or overworked, or, let, I guess, other parts of your life start to dissipate, such as friends, family, other things, if you're not careful. And so I think a really good part about that book is it doesn't not also just talk about the pillars of triathlon, but the importance of finding balance for athletes. And I think that's a big thing, as a coach, that I preach with my athletes is, finding that balance that works for everybody, right? Understanding a lot of us are working full-time jobs, have kids, have responsibilities, and, to work a training for a full Ironman into that mix is very difficult. So I think just, trying to find that balance and knowing it's okay for us to see a red on Training Peaks, to miss a workout, right? Yeah. To go attend a celebratory wedding or something and miss, our long ride that day. It's okay, right? So I think that's another good thing that, that book has given me perspective on. I think when starting the sport, I was just so gung-ho. And a lot of amateurs kind of make that mistake of it's just train, where you need to make sure that you're leaving space for other things in your life. And triathlon doesn't always need to be at the forefront of it.
Wow. You are preaching in the choir right here. I think that book is something that I'm going to be checking out sooner rather than later. Thank you, Chad. That's awesome. Oh man. Yeah, it is. You do want to, that's something that I realized is you want to commit wholeheartedly. Like you want to give it your best bet. It's an Ironman, but it does consume, if you're not careful, it will consume every part of your life. So that is awesome to hear that somebody can place first in his age group, still have a life around him, and be cognizant of that and prioritize balance rather than training every day and overworking. So wow, that's awesome, man.
Definitely. And I would say less is more sometimes in this sport. I see some of the top age groupers aren't even putting in, the crazy amount of volume you would think, but that volume that they are putting in is just very, very good quality. So I really try to preach quality over quantity, making sure you're going into those workouts, especially the key ones, fully recovered, not overtrained, making sure that you're properly fueled, in a good headspace. That's really going to allow the body to properly adapt and recover. And that's really where we're getting faster. It's not, in the training itself, it's actually in the recovery process where we're finding those adaptions. So if you're not allowing the body to recover, you're certainly going to hit a plateau, and you're not going to see a lot of progress. So give your body time to recover. For a lot of athletes listening, it's going into off season. So, take some time off. It's like I would say, time to get, eat some food, put a little weight on, do those things with the family that you haven't been able to maybe, have the luxury of doing. And that way you go into next season feeling fresh and ready to hit it, rather than feeling burnout before you even, start the season. Wow. You certainly don't want that.
Yeah. Wow. Dude, thank you. Holy cow. I needed this more than anybody else, I think. This is incredible, Chad. Thank you so much. Of course. I do want to be cognizant of your time, and we're getting close to the end here. But one thing that we haven't talked about yet is nutrition. And I'm curious about what your nutrition style is. Do you follow any specific diet, or do you have any tips out there for somebody who might not know too much about the food intake and outtake?
I don't really follow a diet, especially in Ironman training. I'm a big proponent of just eating when you're hungry. I think when you're doing large volume as an endurance athlete, it's really, really important to fuel, because fuel is recovery at the end of the day. And I think some people might obsess a little bit too much about the scale. I actually don't even own a scale. I don't even know what my weight is half the year. Right. So I would say try to, not obsess over weight. Try to eat healthy whole foods and stay away from those processed foods is really what I try to do. But I don't count my calories. I don't count my macros. I just try to eat a lot of whole foods, a lot of vegetables, clean, meat. Do I indulge in, the chocolate or the beer every now and again. Yes, definitely do. And, I definitely have a sweet tooth, and I would say that's kind of the luxury of being an endurance athlete is to replace all those calories. Sometimes you have to eat some of the bad stuff. So I would say, we're not, if you look at any pro or top amateur, it's not like we're completely eating, just clean diets all the time, all year round. I'd say, closer to my races, yes, I'm trying to eat very clean. But, this time of year around where it's like the holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas, I really try to just enjoy food, have a glass of wine with dinner with my family, live a little bit. I think it's, again, finding that balance that works for you. I think when we try to stay too disciplined 12 months out of the year, it's not something that I think is, sustainable.
Right.
So it's really finding something that works for you. I really, like I said, just try to come back to eating, a good diet that's filled with a lot of, whole organic foods at the end of the day. And then when it comes into, Ironman training, I do a little bit. I would say like the one nutritional thing that I'll do is I will do some fasted workouts. So I'll do those straight in the morning. I usually have just black coffee just to help me kind of hold me over a little bit. But, that might be a 2 or 3 hour workout with nothing in me. And the point of that is really to help my fat adaptation. As you know, in an Ironman, our body's topped up. We maybe have 1,200 calories of glycogen, and that's almost eaten through by the time we get out of that water. Especially for those athletes that are swimming, 90 plus minutes, it's all gone. Right. So it's ever important to, replace those glycogen stores, throughout the race through constant feeding. But, you can only at that time, replace so much. I mean, the body will let us maybe consume anywhere from, 80 to 90 carbs per hour. Now, for some athletes, we can train it a little bit higher, but we're kind of capped at how much we can consume, right? So the body has no other decision but to pull from fat, right? And so by training that body to use your fat stores is certainly important for full distance. Not as important for middle distance athletes, but if you're looking to do a full distance Ironman, I would say working on that fat adaptation and playing around with that is definitely something that I would recommend doing in your training.
That's awesome, man. You are a wealth of knowledge. Let me tell you, these are things that I haven't even considered. So something tells me this is not the last conversation that we'll be having, and I'll be turning to you sometime during this off season. So Chad, I do want to wrap this thing up and let you go on to your weekend though, but I do want to say that I appreciate you being on here and sharing your insight. If there's anybody who's looking to get in contact with you, maybe for training purposes or just to see what you're all about, what's the best way to follow along and see your journey?
Yeah, definitely. I would say just follow me on Instagram. You can find my handle there, as well as my coaching page if you're interested in that. So my handle is C Bykerk, Bykerk. So you can find me there on Instagram. Give me a follow. Feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions, and we can go from there.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll link that stuff in the show notes. But again, Chad, really appreciate you. Can't wait to see what's next for you and all that you accomplished, bro. I'll talk to you soon, and thanks again, man.
Thank you, Chris. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Kona as well, man.
Let's go. All right, brother. Have a good weekend.
All right, take care. All right, you as well.